Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It's been an insane 24 hours for Star Wars movie updates, but today, the new developments are even crazier, and I can't wait to break them all down. If you're out of the loop about all of the Kylo Ren stuff, I urge you watch my previous video before this one. So after the shocking revelation from Adam Driver that Lucasfilm was working on a Kylo Ren movie for 2 years, before it was scrapped by Disney, the Star Wars fandom erupted. There's been more discourse about this than any other recent Star Wars topic, of any of the upcoming movies, of any recent shows. It's been non-stop. And with this, we've had a few responses from some creatives. I'll get to that in just a moment. But overnight, there has been such a bizarre shift. Something I've never seen in all my time as a Star Wars YouTuber, or in all my time on the internet. Star Wars fans have turned on Bob Iger and are shifting the blame away from Kathleen Kennedy. There is this sudden realization that so many cancelled projects from the last 5 or 10 years are not down to Kathy, but down to Disney and the overheads. And for the very first time in the history of Star Wars fandom, I'm seeing people defend Kathleen Kennedy, and now the coin's been flipped on its head. So often, you hear Kathy being blamed, or I guess you could say scapegoated, for every Disney Star Wars failure. And I guess it makes sense, she is the president of Lucasfilm, but until today the narrative has been very singular. Kathy is to blame for all of it. Everything is Kathy's fault. While she was instrumental in reviving the Star Wars franchise after 2012, Star Wars fans often say she betrayed George's trust, and she's become a lightning rod for so much criticism, particularly for the sequel trilogy, the lack of a unified vision, not putting the right people in the right places. Some say she turned Star Wars into a, quote, girl brand, and much criticism comes from certain creatives. Phil Lord and Chris Miller named her when discussing being fired from Solo: A Star Wars Story mid-production. So when it comes to an ambassador for everything perceived as Star Wars' downfall, people point the blame at Kathy. But there's a flip side to this, one which Star Wars fans are only now starting to pay attention to. When it comes to Star Wars' ups and downs, there have definitely been some Disney Star Wars ups, and Kathy has been named by several creatives as the one person responsible for so much of the recent Star Wars content that we do enjoy. There's a brand new rumor that she's the reason the Clone Wars Season 7 happened. Bob Iger didn't want it, but along with Dave Filoni, Kathy really pushed to make it happen. Tony Gilroy said that Kathy was the reason Andor happened. She was one of the only executives who believed in the original pitch. And if you want to look at the Mandoverse, she pushed for projects like Skeleton Crew. And according to Jon Favreau, Kathy is the reason The Mandalorian's first season saw so much success. She believed in his vision, and Kathy was fundamental in ensuring that Grogu remained a secret, that he wasn't leaked in any of the merch before the first episode. So I guess you have to take the bad with the good. I don't agree with the way she's managed Lucasfilm, and I'm not trying to stroke her ego the way some fans are, whether it's the way Lucasfilm interacts with the fans these days, or the overall creative direction. I don't agree with so many decisions that she was fundamentally behind. However, credit's where it's due, and in the case of the Ben Solo movie, Kathy was someone who said yes, whereas Disney, and to be more specific, Bob Iger and Alan Bergman, said no. So over the last 24 hours, Star Wars fans have changed their tune. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, there is some truth to the idea that we blame Kathy for things that maybe were out of her hands, but I'm also not going to jump on the bandwagon and just suddenly say everything Lucasfilm has done is perfect. It's far from. They've had many creative foibles, and you can't just say all of that is Disney. But when it comes to cancellations, the latest updates do seem to point to responsibility on the part of the mouse. And it is fascinating to note that Kathy was on board with the Kylo Ren project, and it seems to prove that there's very little she says no to, but she seems to really like stories that push the envelope. It's why she loved The Last Jedi and The Acolyte. But again, with the latter, with The Acolyte, we recently learned there were changes that were made to the original script, and it is worth specifying that according to Deadline.com, Alan Bergman, president of Walt Disney Studios, is the person who said no to The Acolyte Season 2. It wasn't a decision made within Lucasfilm, but The Acolyte is a very unique case of overspending, low viewership, and non-stop controversy. But it is indicative of wider overreach, and when you're talking about the Ben Solo project, it puts into question other Star Wars movies that were being developed and were cancelled. Rogue Squadron, the Jabba the Hutt movie, the Benioff and Weiss trilogy, the Kevin Feige movie, and so on and so forth. fans are realizing that honestly we have no idea what goes on behind the scenes, and more often than not, it's got very little to do with Lucasfilm. One of the people who's done a huge 180 on Kathleen Kennedy is Josh from Den of Nerds, and according to his source, I have no idea if it's a reliable one, but this is what's going round. Kathy is one of the people who made projects happen that wouldn't have otherwise been approved, so she's been pushing for things behind the scenes. And I guess the term of the day is Disney interference, something which has been speculated about, but we never really had proof of until Adam Driver graced us with the truth and exposed what's going on. Now, since all of these developments, the original director of the Ben Solo movie, Steven Soderbergh, has responded to the drama, and he said this: "I really enjoyed making the movie in my head. I'm just sorry the fans won't get to see it. He and Adam Driver know what the movie's about, and we don't. We know it's got something to do with the resurrection of Ben Solo, some kind of spiritual reckoning, as described by Adam himself, but we know no specifics. Adam Driver said it was one of the coolest scripts he's ever read. It is so unbelievably frustrating." And another thing I've seen amongst the general fandom is a frustration about the movies we are getting versus movies we could have gotten. The most common complaint is, why are we getting a side mission movie with the Mandalorian and Grogu when we could have gotten something more high stake, like the return of Ben? Here is a hilarious meme that came out of it. Adam Driver sitting at the desk of Bob Iger, and Bob tells him, "Sorry, Mr. Driver, we just have very high standards." And behind Adam you see 3 absolutely ridiculous movie posters, 3 Grogu spin-offs: Grogu goes to school, Grogu gets a freaking cat, and Grogu is potty trained. And look, I'm not trying to put the Mandalorian and Grogu down. I'm someone who's actually more positive about it than most. I'm still a huge Mando fan. But to fans who specifically despise seeing so much Grogu, or as they call it, Grogu slop, hearing news like this, where they cancelled an incredible project with amazing creatives, is just another slap in the face. And isn't it just insane that movies like the Taika Waititi movie are still supposedly going ahead, but a Kylo Ren movie exploring themes of the Force, redemption, and returning to the light side was scrapped? It is so bizarre to me. And yes, the Taika Waititi movie is not just still happening, but apparently the scripts are nearly done. It's almost like all of the confirmed projects are inferior to the ones that were cancelled or delayed. So much has been unveiled in the last day or so, and it all sheds light on the fact that we truly have no clue what goes on behind closed doors. And speaking of Star Wars movies, my friends, it's been reported that Lando, which was originally a TV show, now it's a movie by the Glover brothers, is still on the table. It's not scrapped, and we should get an official update sometime soon. I've also personally heard similar things. Apparently the Lando movie is one which Lucasfilm is still keen on making, so hopefully more info soon. But with that said, my friends, those are the latest Star Wars movie updates. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, subscribe if you're new, and may the Force be with you always.